Ladies, gentlemen, we heard a presidential statement right now from the Security Council that miraculously managed not to mention Hamas or rockets or Israel's right to defend its citizens. Tonight, I will not address leaders or heads of state. Tonight, I want to speak as the voice of reason to the citizens of the world who need to hear the unvarnished truth. We have grown tired of the vilification and the demonization of the only democracy in the Middle East. Not a day goes by when we don't read about Al-Qaeda or ISIS or Boko Haram and Hezbollah. You already know that these are terror organizations that have declared war on democracy and also the values that we all cherish. Don't be misled by Hamas's propaganda. It is also an extremist Islamist terror organization with a jihadi ideology and a mission to eradicate Israel. Hamas sends suicide bombers to our schools, buses, and cities. They dig tunnels of terror that reach the doorsteps of our homes, schools, and kindergartens inside kibbutzim in Israel. Hamas has abused the hundreds of millions of dollars donated by your governments to build these terror tunnels. Your tax dollars are not being used towards education, civil services, or development. They're being used to develop a terror stronghold. The people of the world should be shocked by what we have uncovered in Gaza. 6 stories under the ground, Hamas has built a vast network of terror tunnels. It uses these tunnels to send terrorists into our communities, to kidnap our children, and to murder our citizens. In the last 3 weeks, Hamas has fired over 2,500 rockets on our people, and they fire indiscriminately at our citizens. They fire at our kindergartens, just like your kindergartens. They fire at houses, schools, factories, and offices, just like the ones you go every morning. These rockets crash into our living rooms, kitchens, and children's bedrooms, just like your living rooms, kitchens, and children's bedrooms. Hamas purposely puts children in harm's way by hiding rockets in UNRWA schools and shooting from these schools at Israeli citizens. Don't fall for the terrorist propaganda. Don't believe the newspapers that claim that both sides are equally to blame. We did everything we could to avoid this conflict, but Hamas refused to stop the attacks. Israel agreed to 5 ceasefire proposals. Hamas rejected or broke all of them, even the ones that they requested by themselves. Every single time the international community called for a ceasefire, we seized and Hamas fired. Make no mistake, Hamas is not working alone. It is funded by Qatar and Iran. Every rocket flying out of Gaza could bear the imprint courtesy of Tehran, while every terror tunnel could have a sign that reads, "Made possible through a kind donation of the Emir of Qatar." Imagine what your life would be if you lived with these threats over 10 years. The equation is simple, and I said it and I'll repeat it again. If it's going to be quiet in Israel, it's going to be quiet in Gaza. It's as simple as it gets. I call upon each and every one of you to stand with Israel. Standing with a nation that fights terrorism and defends its citizens is the same way that you would expect your government to defend you. Stand with good against evil and stand for right over wrong. Thank you very much, and let me open this for your questions.
For part of this trip, the Secretary General flew on a plane that was funded by Qatar. Do you feel that this has influenced the Security Council's, wording of this at all?
I think the Secretary General and the United Nations is a respectable man, and I don't think that would have any effect on his judgment.
Could I ask about the drafts? I wanted to ask about, there have been various drafts. Haaretz and also Al Jazeera came out with slightly different drafts that they say were presented to Israel's cabinet and voted down. Is that true? Was a final draft presentation presented by Secretary Kerry? And if you've seen the two drafts, which one was it? Did it mention 12 nautical miles or not? And what can you say of the status of the process that resulted in what was described as a no vote and surprise at Kerry's proposal?
I can say the following. I can say that Israel agreed to 5 ceasefires. We agreed to humanitarian ceasefires in order to allow people to receive food, medicine, and others. Israel has agreed to all the ceasefires and the humanitarian aid that we were asked from the international community. This is our policy, and we have to look at the bigger picture, Matthew. And the bigger picture is the demilitarization of Hamas would allow, at the end of the day, Gaza to be restructured and rebuilt again. But look at what we have found inside Gaza, those terror tunnels, with all the cement. You remember all the construction material that everyone, repeated like parrots here. Why don't you allow construction material in? Tons of cement to those terror tunnels. Millions of dollars going into those terror tunnels with one object only, and that is to murder, kill, maim, and kidnap Israeli citizens. That is absolutely before your eyes. And this is the only reason that Israel clearly states that we have to demilitarize and take out this horrible terror structure that was built by Hamas with the millions of dollars donated, truthfully, by good people from the international community.
Ambassador, are you saying that you will not stop this military operation until you destroy this network, these tunnels? What are you talking about exactly to stop the war? What would convince Israel to stop the military operation?
Like I said, we wanted a ceasefire, and we're willing for a ceasefire. How many days back? I think 10 days back, 15 days back. If you think about it logically, what do we need to do in Gaza? The only reason is that we want to have quiet for our citizens and defend our citizens in Israel. There's no logic. So in the sense, at the end of the day, if you think about it, you don't have to have an IQ of a rocket scientist to understand that if rockets fly onto you, you're allowed to defend yourselves. This is basically a simple equation, like I said. If it's going to be quiet in Israel, it's going to be quiet in Gaza. We left Gaza never to look back into Gaza. We have nothing against the Palestinian people, but we clearly have something against this Hamas terrorist organization that uses them as human shields and abuses them every day. So we all have a problem with a terrorist organization with a clear ideology, and standing with Israel today, ladies and gentlemen, would allow the world tomorrow to be able to be a safer place.
Sir?
Please.
Thank you. So you said that this PLST doesn't mention to Hamas at all. So what's your position to this PLST? Do you reject it, accept it? And what is also your position to this draft resolution which is tabled?
Well, I'm like you, I'm reading the statement. Like I said, miraculously, it doesn't mention Hamas. It doesn't mention any firing of rockets. I can count 2,500 rockets. It doesn't mention a word about Israel's right to defend itself. Israeli citizens are under, so in the sense, those things are lacking in this statement. That's a very clear observation.
Thank you.
Thank you.